members are trained to do this. And we practice really constantly with emergency services classes and search and rescue exercises, so that we can be of value to the community in that way. Another thing that we're tasked to do, as far as emergency services is concerned, is to locate these emergency locator transponders. These are the kind of like the black boxes on airplanes, and if there's a crash or something, it'll send a signal off, and the satellites pick that up, and then the Air Force calls us eventually and says, go locate this. So we have equipment that's direction finding equipment. We can triangulate on the signal and hopefully get to the signal, find out what it is. Many times it's nothing at all. It's usually a pilot that maybe has landed a little too hard and set the thing off and didn't realize it and wasn't able to turn it off. But there's about 9,000 of those nationally every year. Really? And we're tasked with trying to locate those and call the pilot when we find it and say, come and turn your ELT off. And
Well, and you know, and the thing is that, as you mentioned, this is a volunteer organization. You're all volunteers, and it sounds like, you know, obviously if somebody's interested in being a part of the Civil Air Patrol, that they can, you know, contact the Civil Air Patrol, that they can then join, that they'll get the training that they need, that they don't actually have to come with any real training, correct? When they come to the organization, that they get what they need when they join.
That's true. It's an organization that begins with cadets from age 12 or in the 6th grade, and they remain in the program as cadets until they're 21 years of age. Many times, however, when they go off to college, they kind of their activities in Civil Air Patrol kind of diminish because they've got, you know, studies and so forth. And then the seniors, of course, are 21 years older and older. And it's an excellent program, especially for young people who would like to learn to fly, because that's one of the things that we teach. And also for people that are interested in attending one of the military service branch academies. Because this looks, it's very helpful to those academies when they see this on a resume. They know you've had some training. They know you have a little bit of military history. They know you know a little bit about aerospace education, flying, and so forth. So that's quite a help.
And I think also that idea of having a dedication and a commitment to volunteerism in your community, I think that lends itself to some core values that it builds within a person. If you've been involved with an organization like this, or like Scouting, or some other organization where you work together in team building and have a common commitment for the good of your community. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, and trying to encourage those kinds of organizations within our communities, and trying to encourage our young kids to, you know, think of those as actually maybe something fun to do.
And it is fun, and you're exactly right. Think of how you can have fun and at the same time help the community, be available to perform a task that's valuable to the community.
Well, I would think that for some kids, of course, this whole idea that they might be part of a search and rescue team and learning that would be something that might be considered fun, because there's more than just sitting at a table and learning something, and you know, I think there's a little challenge, a little adventure.
You're learning a little bit, and then you get to go out there and put it into practice.
Yes, exactly.
An example would be the last 2 years up in the Red River Valley in the springtime with the flooding. We've had, in conjunction with North Dakota, the Minnesota wing has been up there, and South Dakota wing also sent cadets and seniors to do the sandbagging and try and keep the river back and so forth. And 2 years ago, it was quite high.
Yeah.
And
now
so
that would be an adventure as well.
It was an adventure. I was there. It was really an adventure.
So it's the kind of thing that even anybody out in our viewing audience, young or older than 22, can say, hey, you know, I'm kind of thinking I would like to spend a little of my volunteer time helping my community. This might be a way for them to do that, also get a little adventure in their life, some camaraderie as well, I would imagine.
A lot. Yeah, let me, if I could, just
Yes.
give the website for the Minnesota Wing. It's mncap.org, and that'll bring up our wing website, and you can kind of poke around there, and all of our squadrons are listed there with information on how to contact them. And later during this show, I think my name will be up there with a phone number and an email address, and you could certainly contact me at any time, and I could point you in the right direction.
Yeah, that's very good. And that, of course, then leads us right on into our next topic, which is what we're probably going to spend the most of the program time on, is talking about the Wreaths Across America, because this is something that is going to be happening December 11th at Fort Snelling. And so go ahead and tell us a little bit about Wreaths Across America. First of all, tell us about what is this event that's going to happen on December 11th, now that everybody's thinking, okay, what's this event? And then we'll talk a little bit about the history of this event.
Okay. Well, the event takes place, as you mentioned, on December 11th, and this is a national event. It's taking place at over 230 national cemeteries and state cemeteries for veterans. For example, Arlington Cemetery and Fort Snelling here, Little Falls in northern Minnesota. It begins at 11 o'clock, and at that precise time, there's a moment of silence, which is across the United States. And the purpose really of this program is to remember our fallen soldiers, our veterans, and to honor them in this way at the holiday season time. And to teach the young people a little bit more about what it means to be a veteran and what all the white stones mean at these cemeteries, and what we've got to be so thankful for here, because many of those people contributed heavily to our armed forces to provide us the freedoms that we have now. So, as you mentioned, this is going to take place on December 11th at 11 o'clock at the main flagpole area on Fort Snelling here in the Twin Cities. There's also going to be a ceremony up in Little Falls next to Camp Ripley. There's several cemeteries down in the Rochester area that are involved in this also, and then there's some cemeteries up in northern Minnesota that are also involved. Outside of the Little Falls and the National Cemetery at Fort Snelling, there's probably 8 other cemeteries around in the state of Minnesota that are involved with this program. The program at Fort Snelling consists of really honors for the veterans. We start out with the moment of silence, present the colors. We have a speaker. This year it's going to be Lieutenant Colonel Michael Bauman, who was an artillery battalion commander in Baghdad several years ago. And he will be delivering an address that lasts about 20 minutes. And during that address time, we will decorate the military service branch flagpoles that surround the main flagpole with wreaths. And also helping to decorate those will be various groups, community groups. For example, we have some of the children from St. Francis St. James that's going to be placing a wreath at one of the service branch flagpoles. We have people from the Blue Star Mothers of America that are going to be helping to do that. And they're also always accompanied by one of our cadets in the placing of those wreaths. Then after that address is completed, our wing commander, Colonel Tom Tice, will say a few words of thanks for folks coming out, and then Lieutenant Governor Karen Molnar will speak. She's been there the last 2 years. And
oh, really?
Yeah, has a very brief but good address also. And then we're going to complete that portion at the main flagpole and then move to an area that's very near the main flagpole, sections A3, A5, and A6, and decorate those graves in that site. That site is along the 34th Avenue Street fence, and it's one of the oldest sections in the cemetery. And this will be the 5th year at Fort Snelling. This program actually went national 4 years ago. The folks that got it started were out in the state of Maine. A gentleman by the name of Morrill Wooster began this program. He has a wholesale wreath company there. And when he was a young person, he visited Arlington Cemetery. And it impressed him so much that he remembered it. And he began 18 years ago, decided to send some wreaths down to Arlington to decorate graves there.
And here you go. Here's an idea that somebody just came up with. They're going, well, why can't I do this? And they just they extended this idea and they just took action.
Took action and went for it. It's exactly right. And he's been doing this now for 18 years, and it really gets to be quite, talk about fun. They leave in sort of a caravan from Harrington, Maine, with the wreaths that they're taking down to Arlington, and they go through, you know, they're on interstates and so forth. By the time they get down there, they have a 2-mile long group of people.
Oh my goodness.
Trucks, cars, the Patriot Guard riders, and when they pull into Arlington, I mean, it's quite a to-do. This year they'll be placing about 10,000 wreaths at Arlington National Cemetery. They did the same thing last year.
That is a tremendous number of wreaths. It truly is.
Nationally, it's about over 200,000 this year around the United States.
Wow, I would imagine that must be really a sight to see all the wreaths like that, all placed in their place and decorating all the graves. That's interesting.
We have a little video later on that will maybe show some of that, so you'll be able to see what it looks like at Arlington. They don't have as much snow as we do.
Right.
But I think...
Well, you know, and I could see where actually, especially, you know, with having this idea be created in Maine and working its way through the country, in here in Minnesota and in Maine and Washington, D.C., where it does stay a little colder, obviously then the wreaths will last longer. Too, so that way it's the kind of thing where it's not just a one-day remembrance, is that it lasts as long as, you know, the wreaths are out there.
Here in Minnesota, you've got a month or so easily that they stay looking very fresh, really.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. Now I understand that we have a caller on the line.
Oh.
Caller, thank you for calling in this evening. Questions or comments for us tonight?
Hi, Mayor Laundrie. Thanks for giving publicity to this important program. In my office, I have a calendar of soldiers who have been injured in the Afghanistan-Iraq war, and, you know, I really appreciate that calendar, which I think this organization puts out. The thing is, I was in Washington, and I was disappointed that not more members of Congress had this calendar out there, and I really appreciated the members of Congress who actually had pictures of the soldiers who had been injured, who had fallen in these wars, because when we go in these wars, there's nothing more important than to keep remembering what the consequence of this is to our soldiers. And I'd sure like to see a lot more of these calendars distributed and all over the metropolitan area. Thanks for doing this show. How do we get a hold of one of those calendars? Yeah.
Well,
Are they at Target or?
Well, you know what? I think... I bet you Richard can get you hooked up with one of those calendars, and I think it's a little different organization, but it is indeed a program that Richard was on here before to talk about the calendar, and you made a really important comment, I think, about, you know, remembering those soldiers who have given their life or who have served their country, who, you know, have come back home or who are wounded or have served in any way, because truly we wouldn't be where we are today without their efforts and their sacrifice. And some, of course, you know, have made the ultimate sacrifice, and certainly I think that the calendar, we have talked about that on this program before, and that, you know, it commemorates the lives of gentlemen who have lost their life in the wars. And there are several Congress people in Washington, D.C. that outside of their offices, that they have the pictures of soldiers who have fallen, who have died. And I don't know if it's just ones from their state or what, but that they have them outside their office on their wall. And I know that one congressperson actually has a little sign on there that says that these pictures will remain here, and this is a freedom of speech. So maybe there's some kind of a rule that you're not supposed to have pictures on the walls or something. I don't know. I can't tell you that, but it seemed like it was a statement to me that that congressperson certainly wanted to have. You know, they wanted these pictures to be out in the hallway, not in the back room someplace where nobody will remember.
Exactly.
So,
remembering is the key.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I understand we have some video. You had mentioned you brought some, and we actually have 2 different video clips, so we don't want to not get them in the program. So let's at least get the first one out here, and I'll